Hi, and welcome to the Eczema Podcast, where you'll learn tips, products, and natural eczema remedies from Abby, registered holistic nutritionist and founder of PrimePhysiqueNutrition.com. Here's your host of the Eczema Podcast, Abby.
So, hey guys, welcome to the Eczema Podcast. Today I'm here with a really special guest, Dr. Jason Lee. He was actually my naturopath who really helped me on my journey with eczema and really helped me to overcome severe eczema. So I'm super excited to have him as a guest on the show today. And I'll just let him talk more about how he got into naturopath and what made him specialize in eczema as well.
Yeah, well, I guess for me, my journey began a long time ago. When I was born in the 70s, and in the 70s it was sort of like, breastfeeding wasn't really right, and they really pushed formula feeding. So when I was born, my mom had difficulty getting me to latch, and there was an open opportunity to say, well, don't worry, we have formula. So try the formula out, and it's superior anyway to breast milk. It has all the vitamins and nutrients and things like that in it. So my mom jumped on the opportunity, put me on the formula, and that's when everything started. So within about a week of being on the formula, the eczema started coming out. It started coming out my face first, and neck, and it just kind of moved down the body. My mom didn't really know what to do, so she took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, eczema is a condition, it's a disease, it's genetic. We don't really know why it happens, but here's a treatment for it. So I was started on steroid treatment. So we started topical steroids on the face initially, and then it moved to the rest of the body. The thing is that it never fully went away. It would disappear maybe in some areas, got worse in other areas, but in the end it got so bad that probably by the time I was about 1 or 2, I was covered head to toe in eczema. I was losing my hair because where the eczema would form on the scalp, the hair would fall out. But the worst was mainly the torso, especially the hands and feet. So it was like that for a long time. I've seen many doctors, and my mom got different prescriptions for different types of steroid creams, some creams for the body, some creams for the face. I remember being very young, and my mom would lather me in cortisone, and then because I would itch at night, she would wrap saran wrap around my body and then put me in the bed. And eventually my mom just got plastic sheets because I would just itch a lot at night, and the bleeding would happen. This went on for many years, and over time I developed other disorders. Like I started getting asthmatic, I had breathing problems, I became allergic to things like dust and dogs and cats and trees and pollen and everything. I'd go everywhere, I was allergic to something. So I had this utility belt with all my, like Batman, with all my creams and cortisones and my asthma inhalers, and I had the Beclevent and the Ventolin and then my allergy pills, and that went on for a while. When I was about 11 or 12, in my mom's desperate search, she was able to find a naturopath to take a look at me, and that's when everything changed. I still remember going to see the naturopath, and she looked at me, and I was covered in skin lesions and still taking all these medications, and she looked at me and said, you don't have a skin problem, you have a problem with your digestion. And I looked at her and I was like, what do you mean, a problem with my digestion? I mean, I don't have digestive problems, I go to the bathroom fine. I have a skin problem. She goes, no, you don't. You have a digestion problem. And I didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense, but I was so desperate. I thought, okay, it sounds crazy, but I told her, I said, I'll do whatever you want. You just tell me what to eat, what to do, and we'll see this through. So she changed the diet. I went on a few different supplements, and the skin actually got worse. It got worse. And I thought, oh man, I made a mistake. And my mom was so desperate. She goes, Jason, you gotta just try this out. Just try it out. So I said, okay, I'll stick through it. My skin aggravated for about a month. It just got worse and worse and worse. It started getting more cracking, more bleeding. But then something happened. After about a month, it just got better. It stopped itching. So about 5 weeks into it, the itching went away. And that never happened to me before. It was always itchy. I don't remember it ever not being itchy.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. I thought, okay, something's happening. And then it started healing slowly. So it took about a good 6 months, but by then it was probably about 80% better.
Wow.
And after about a year and a half, it totally disappeared. The last remnants were on my hands, and that took the longest time to get rid of. But I was happy by then. One of the most amazing memories I have of having go away, it sounds really trivial, is I went and washed my hands, and I didn't have to rush to apply cream of some kind because, you know, they were just, I just dried them like an average person, and it was fine. Because if you have any eczema, if you know anybody with eczema, when your hands get wet, the itching just goes crazy, right? And you have to apply cream right away. So that was amazing to me. So after that, I made a decision. I said, you know, instead of being really happy, actually, I was kind of upset because I thought, if someone had told me this information like 11 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been in this state. I wouldn't have suffered for so much because people didn't understand eczema in the 70s and 80s. People thought it was dirty, or I just had an itching problem, or there's something wrong with me, or, you know, a whole bunch of things. And very few kids had eczema at that time, so I thought there was something really messed up. No one really could provide answers. I had answers coming from bad luck to like genetic to I had a Sunday school teacher told me that I'd sinned.
Really?
All these things happened. Like, there's all these reasons why eczema was there, but no one actually said it in a way that made sense to me. And I mean, if the creams really did work, then it would get rid of the eczema altogether. I wouldn't have to keep applying them forever. So that started my journey, and after that, it was like I had to do this as a profession because it was something I believe so strongly in. Because I think people need to understand what's actually causing their problems, not just treating the symptom itself. And eczema, I still to this day do not even view eczema as a disease. I view it as a symptom of something. It is a symptom. It's not a condition or a disease. It's just a symptom. So.
And most of the time, do you feel like it's a digestion problem, or it has other root causes as well?
In my practice, there's many causes, but the three biggest ones I've seen is digestion. And that could be a whole bunch of things. It can be foods that you're eating that you can't tolerate, either a sensitivity or an allergy of some kind. It could be how you break down the food. That could be an enzymatic issue. When you eat food, you have enzymes that break down the food. If you're not producing those properly, you can't break down the food properly, and hence it aggravates the gut. Or it could be stress related as well. Even now for myself, if I get really stressed, I don't feel stressed on the outside. It doesn't change my disposition a whole lot, but my skin might flare up a little bit. And it's interesting because all those things still relate back to the bowel. When you eat food or can't digest food or a stress, it causes inflammation in the bowel. Not inflammation like Crohn's or colitis, but a microinflammation in the villi, which is the lining of the gut. What happens when that occurs is the cells swell, and it puts pressure on the system pretty much. So it causes a leaking of material. They call that leaky gut, or medically semi-permeable membrane syndrome. So you have material that leaks through the bowel line. It could be undigested foods or antigens or even compounds in the gut that feed off food that the body hasn't been able to break down properly, such as yeast or fungus compounds and things like that. And that enters into the bloodstream. Now, because it enters into that system, it cannot be eliminated through normal ways of elimination, like the liver, the kidney, which is how we get rid of our waste. Right? We have to poop it out through the bowel, or we pee it out through the liver, through the kidney, and out of the body. You can't get it out those main areas, which are called emunctories. It will flush through a secondary emunctory, which is the skin. So then it comes out through the skin. That's why it's tough for people, because sometimes they'll eat a food and they'll aggravate on the food, but it'll show as eczema 2 days later, 3 days later, up to a week later. It's not like you eat the food and right away have an eczema attack, although that happens, but it can happen later, like a latent reaction. So it's hard for people to track sometimes, did I eat something that bothered me or not? Right, so those I find are the biggest causes of eczema. And you're seeing it a lot too because of people taking things like antibiotics and whatnot that destroy the gut flora. Not that antibiotics are horrible, I mean there's a place for them, but overprescription can lead to a lot of problems too.
So is there a way to figure out if it's digestion problem or whether it's enzymatic or stress related?
There are tests that people can do, like sensitivity tests, food allergy testing, and things like that. There's many ways of testing, whether it be through electrodermal testing or laboratory or blood work. Or a patient can just do elimination. Like sometimes patients will come in and say, you know what, I found out what bothers me because when I stopped eating this food, my skin got better. So the biggest ones are usually wheat compounds. And the wheat in North America is very different than the wheat that in the rest of the world. It is quite modified. And it's modified a lot. Most of the modification happened probably after the 90s. So some people that say, well, this wheat and gluten thing is not really right because we've been eating it for years. So why is there such a big hype about it now? There is a big hype about it now because the wheat is very different than what used to be. It's modified. So people will take that away, the skin will get better. Other ones can be dairy and dairy products as well. The dairy in Canada is largely unpasteurized, and when you unpasteurize the dairy, you destroy all the enzymes in the dairy, so you can't break it down properly. Plus the dairy's, grain-fed as opposed to grass-fed, which is a whole different story. But anyway, dairy is a big one. Sometimes oils, patients are taking the wrong kinds of oils. They're not cooking with the right kinds of oils. Basically all the oils that industry has made us believe are really healthy, like canola oil, corn oil, all these sunflower oils, those are horrible to cook with. I mean, sunflower oil, you can take it raw, but most of the other ones do not cook with them. The best oils to cook with are sadly not the ones that people have been trained that are bad for us, like ghee, which is a clarified butter. It's solid at room temperature. Coconut oil, solid at room temperature. People get scared. Even grass-fed types of lard and animal fat. People think fat makes you fat. I can't eat the fat because it'll clog my arteries and make you fat. That's actually not true. It's the processed oils that cause more of the inflammation and cannot tolerate high heat. So oils can be a big deal, refined oils. And of course the number one thing is sugar. I mean, sugar's huge. North Americans love sugar, and we love it in lots of food. We don't just love it in candy and chocolate like most people seem to get sugar. It comes in so many forms, right? Like most of the packaged foods out there, the number 2 or 3 ingredient will be sugar, and they always list the ingredients most to least. So if the number 2 ingredient is sugar, it's a big part of that compound. People love sugar, right? And sugar is really harsh on the body because the average North American now will consume somewhere between 140 to 160 pounds of sugar a year, whereas back in 1920, the sugar consumption was like maybe 10 to 20 pounds. So it's significant. And sugar is not one of those things that just cause diabetes. Like, it really bothers the body because of the sugar we take in. It feeds other organisms in the body that aren't really supposed to be getting that level of sugar, like yeast, candida, and other kinds of bacterial compounds. That comes out through the skin too.
So how do you know if it's candida causing the problem or parasites, and which one do you treat first, digestion or?
It begins with testing as well. Like, here's the thing, in reality, like, there's no point in killing a parasite or even doing any work with yeast if you're not treating the digestion first, because there's no point in killing the mouse or the mouse trap in the house if you haven't plugged the hole in the wall and the cheese in the floor that brought the mouse in the first place.
That's true.
Right? You can trap the mice all you want, but if you don't deal with that hole in the cheese, they're going to keep coming back. Right, yeast and bacteria, they're not evil. Like, they are supposed to be in the gut in small amounts, and the gut keeps it at bay based upon the environment in the gut. But when we change that environment, that's when it feeds and it comes out, kind of thing. So usually the first key thing you want to see is the patient going to the bathroom every day? I mean, some people are like, I go to the bathroom, I think everything's fine, and you find out they go once a week. Even once every other day is still not acceptable. Ideally, it's 1 minimum, and you should be going, up to 2 or 3 times a day to eliminate. Because food comes in, people say, I should go 3 times a day. I'm like, you eat 3 times a day, something in, something out, kind of thing. But people don't eliminate properly. They're not digesting properly, and the foods they're eating aren't right either. So fix those first. And then you can start going in and potentially dealing with yeast or fungus or other kinds of things in the body later on, right? So, these organisms are designed to basically decompose you when you die, but the problem is we're eating food that's so horrific and our diet's so poor that we start to become slightly acidic while we are alive. Not enough, not that you're going to decompose while you're alive, but it's enough to aggravate the system and enough to cause some of the issues that people see. Right? And the eczema is just a manifestation of that. Just like a light on your dashboard that tells you the car is running low on oil, it doesn't have anything to do with the light. It has everything to do with the oil. So don't even focus on the light, focus on the oil. The eczema is just a symptom. So one of my professors said something that I'll never forget. He said, when you treat something externally, you will treat it eternally. And he is right. If you treat the eczema externally with just topical steroids, you'll be treating it forever. And ever and ever. And if it does happen to go away, it'll just move to something deeper. So the triad always goes like this. It goes eczema, asthma, allergies. So if you suppress it, it'll start with eczema, then it becomes asthma. If you suppress that with steroid inhalers, it becomes allergies. And that's the allergic triad. Right? So it's interesting. You can see almost the progression of these things, and allergies are very common with people. So they may have no eczema now because they grew out of it, but now it's formed into a different type. So it comes out as allergies or asthma, which is basically eczema type issues in other tissues. Right. So
interesting.
That's a big thing. Yeah.
So the things that you use to treat your patients usually, you find that usually it works, especially with treating digestion?
Yeah, we have very high success rate with eczema. Of course, it depends on how willing the patient is to follow some of the changes you make. I mean, I find it's interesting when I treat children, parents will do anything to get rid of their eczema, but sometimes adults will come in and tell them to do things and they'll hum and haw about it. But it depends on how severe the issue is. I mean, I have patients that come in and I tell them, this is what you have to do for a little while, and they're like, sure. Like whatever it takes to get rid of this, and they'll do it, and they'll see the results fast, right? So, but it depends, of course, on how long the patient's had eczema, how long it's been suppressed. Meaning, if they had eczema for 20 years, they've been on steroids for 20 years, it might take up to a year or so to get rid of it. Whereas if they had it for like a few years, I mean, it might take a few months. So it totally depends. But I love treating children that come in with eczema because I always see myself in them, and I see them itching, and I look at them, and I remember. But if you can treat them young, you can halt the progression before it gets worse, right? So that's the key, is to get it early. Don't wait. Deal with it early so you can deal with the problems. You don't have to keep dealing with the other manifestations of the problem that come up over and over again. Plus, long-term steroid use is not ideal.
Not good at all.
It can thin the skin. I have even areas on my body that are thin permanently. I don't think they'll ever change. There's no eczema there, but the skin's not quite the same. That's because the steroids have a thinning effect on the skin if used for long-term. There's other conditions that can happen too, because whether you take something topically, people don't realize it absorbs right into the blood as well. So it's like almost like I was on steroids for like over 11 years. I mean, that's a formative years during puberty and hormones and everything like that. So I don't even know the damage has fully been done to me. I still think I'm probably trying to work through that. But in the 70s, they told my mom, like, just put this stuff on forever. Like, you can bathe in it. They didn't realize there was such side effects to it. Right.
What about for babies? Because I get a lot of emails for people asking me, like, oh, their son or daughter can't eat like a whole list of foods, and they've tried everything to help them get better.
What starts it off is usually the very, like, right when you're doing the like right in utero, pretty much. Like what the mother eats when she's carrying the child is a big deal, right? A lot of parents, I think, or moms, I guess, when they're pregnant, they're hungry and they have cravings, and sometimes they really indulge in those cravings, which usually aren't particularly great. They're not like, I'm craving broccoli today. It's usually something quite sugary or whatnot. So they kind of go to town on it, and that creates almost like a yeast issue in the body while the child's still in utero, and that can affect the body. A lot of cases nowadays are cesarean section. They're not vaginal birth. When you pass through the vaginal canal, you pick up the mother's good bacteria to populate the gut, and the breastfeeding activates the bacteria to regulate the bowel. So if a child's born cesarean and not breastfed, it's kind of like a double whammy. It's almost a given they're going to have some sort of eczema reaction. So a lot can be done prior to actually giving birth. But once birth happens, I mean, try and get them on the breast as fast as possible. Breast is always best, right? That's the milk that the baby's designed for. Try to hold off on formula. But I mean, some of them just can't produce enough milk, or there's other issues that are going on. They have to go on formula, which is tough because patients always asking, what's the best formula to take? And it's always, my answer is like trying to pick the best of the worst. They're all crummy. Like a lot of them have high fructose corn syrup as a sweetener in there. I don't know why, but they put that. Even the organic ones, it doesn't make sense. It's a very glycemic compound to be in there. So getting your child on a good probiotic is key. Even having the mother take a probiotic during pregnancy, very, very important. And then watching diet, very, very key as well. And as soon as the eczema comes up, taking it to somebody to deal with it is best, as opposed to suppressing it. Because right away people put cream on and think, okay, I'll just try it out. If the cream works, we'll see how it goes. And sometimes it does work. They put the cream on and it works, but then 2 days later you got to keep applying it. If you have to keep applying the cream over and over again, it tells you that it's not treating the actual issues, it's covering it. And you don't want to cover it for very long, right? That's when it goes more systemic. So what can people do? I mean, the best thing is to eat properly. I mean, stay away from refined foods, stay away from processed foods, stay away from junk, regardless of the cravings. I know they're probably crazy, but I mean, they're not great. And then try to get them on the breast as soon as possible. If you have to get a lactation consultant to come in or whatnot, that's key.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any last minute words of advice that you want to leave?
I guess, I don't know. It's a good question.
Just mentioned some.
You know, one thing is to understand how the body works. The body is not stupid. It will not produce a symptom for fun. It will not produce a symptom to ruin your life or cause you grief. The body creates these symptoms as a warning light to tell you something's going on. Asthma is a warning. Eczema is a warning. Allergies are a warning. So instead of saying, forget it, I'm just going to cover that warning and get on with my day, try and find out what is it about what I do that causes that problem and deal with it at the source as opposed to covering it. Eczema is not the devil. It is basically a symptom. You have to find out what causes it. And for some patients, I mean, eczema can be a blessing in many ways. I know it sounds kind of crazy, and this is a positive way to look at eczema, is that usually the patients I see that have eczema, their children have a strong vitality. They will not hold toxicity. When stuff comes in, it comes out right away. It comes out. It doesn't stay in the body. Because some patients will say, well, my friend's kids eat the same as my kid. How come my kid has eczema and they don't? That's a dispositional thing. Right? Some people, everybody's a weak spot. Right? If I blow up a balloon, the balloon will get larger and at some point it'll pop. Where does the balloon pop? At the weak spot. It's dependent on the balloon. Patients have weak spots as well. They will show their illness through the weak spot. Eczema for me and for you is a weak spot. So we're what they call atopic disposition. It will show through asthma, allergies, eczema. So that's what we show. Some people, when they have toxicity or can't tolerate things, they get headaches. Some people get digestive disorders. Some people get fatigue. Some people get, like, there's a whole bunch of different things people get. Right? So look at the illness or the symptom not as the end, but as the beginning, as a lesson to help you. Because I'd say eczema, while I hated it as a child, it really has changed my life because it's helped me look at illness in many different ways. And when I have patients that come in that have eczema, it's given me great insight because I know exactly what they're feeling. I know exactly what they're going through. When they tell me they're itching and they just want to tear their skin off, and people don't understand, and people have told them to put cream on it and just stop itching. I mean, I get it. You can't stop itching. When it comes, it's on, right? So, the best piece of advice I can give is to realize that eczema is not a disease. It is a symptom of something, and the key is to find out what is that something.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
One last question I had was, one email I get a lot is that people see naturopaths, but they don't really notice a difference. So is that because some naturopaths just aren't experienced in knowing how to treat eczema?
It totally depends. I mean, you know, different strokes for different folks, right? Like some people, maybe the naturopath's not testing properly, or maybe not getting the right testing, or the patient's not following through with what they're saying, or they don't want to follow through. It totally depends. I mean, success rate in this clinic is quite high, but I mean, I demand a lot from my patients. I will tell them, like, you have to do this, and they'll say, well, I don't know if I can. I'm like, well, let me help you with that, but you know, you're gonna try, okay? Like, I do push them because they have high expectations. I have high expectations for them. It's a two-way street kind of thing. So it's like every profession, you're going to have people that resonate well and some that don't. I mean, medically, some people take the steroids and they feel great and call it a day, and some people don't. Right? But it depends on how you approach the thing. Just because some people may not have success with a naturopath doesn't mean that's the right naturopath for them, or the treatments don't work. Because naturopaths practice very different as well. They have different approaches to things, different ways of dealing with things. Although the key in naturopathic medicine is to treat the underlying issue that caused the problem in the first place. So whatever naturopath you see, it's important to do some level of testing to at least determine what's causing the eczema, as opposed to just saying, well, try fish oil or try this. Because if the patient can't tolerate fats and you put them on a fish oil, it will aggravate. If the patient goes on a liver cleanse, for example, to deal with eczema, like you might put an adult on, but their liver is compromised in some way, shape, or form, or they're not breaking down foods properly, that will aggravate them. Or if the patient goes on a yeast cleanse, for example, but they're not dealing with a digestive issue, then that will aggravate them. So it's like, I haven't seen results because, you know, I'm aggravating, but, you know, it's hard to tell. Right? Sometimes the aggravation could be a detox in itself. Sometimes it could be the wrong treatment, but it's up to the practitioner to be able to determine that, and the patient themselves. So, you know, try as you might, we're not God. I can't fix every single person that comes in the office, but definitely try my best, and I'm sure other doctors always try their best as well. So, yeah.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Cool. Thanks for your time.
Anyway, if you are interested in seeing Jason, he does practice in Oakville, Ontario, in Canada. And I know that people do fly in from the States and elsewhere in Canada to see him. So he is in high demand, and he's one of the smartest naturopaths I know, and he's helped me a lot too. So I really look up to him. So please check out his site. Is it drjasonlee.com?
Yeah, just www.drjasonlee.com.
Okay, awesome.
But I mean, the key is to find the best match. I might not be the best naturopath for everybody, and all I want people to do is to feel better. So whatever route they pick, whoever they see, it doesn't matter. But as long as they realize that eczema is a symptom, not a condition, in my opinion. Like, of course, medically it's diagnosed as a disease, but it really isn't on the outside.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Eczema Podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass it along to your friends and colleagues. Visit primephysiquenutrition.com for more articles and tips. Thanks for listening.